this helmet for effect, so I'll take it off. But can anybody guess what I did? Yes.
Biked across the country.
Biked across the country. And I'd like to tell you today why I did it, what I saw, and what I experienced when I did it. First off, my name is Sam, and more importantly, I'd like to introduce you to somebody who's really important in my life. And that person's my grandfather. I didn't inherit his height, so hopefully I don't inherit his gut or his baldness. But I would very much like to inherit his goodwill and his kindness. In summer 2008, I had the pleasure of spending a week with him in France, and he basically treated me like a king. He fed me red wine and gave me steak every single night. And I really never got to know him until this point, and that's why it was such a shame that in November 2008, he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now, he had 2 tumors taken out of his prostate, and I arrived home from one weekend from UVic, and I figured this out. And it was really shocking for me because it took a lot out of me because I spent so long with him in the summer and really got to know him. So to have that happen, I realized I needed to do something. Something needed to happen, and I wanted to figure out how to do it. I couldn't do something for him, but I wanted to do something in honor of him. So that's why Peddlers for Prostate was born. I got 3 friends together, we talked about biking across the country, and then I went to the Prostate Center in Victoria and talked to the Prostate Center in Victoria. And she said that I could do this, and she was very supportive, and I said I'd love to donate money to her and her organization. So before I knew it, it was May 22nd, 2010. I talked to news crews and I talked to politicians, and I had 3 friends, and as we left from mile 0 in Victoria, in front of the Terry Fox Memorial, which is a huge theme to this story, we were escorted out by about 15 or so motorcycles out of Victoria, and it was kind of strange because you had this contrast between spandex and leather, so I thought that was kind of an interesting experience. As we were going through BC, it was really beautiful. There were so many mountains and so many things to see, but unfortunately with the beauty came a lot of pain. My knee really wasn't doing too well, and by the 5th day, I could no longer bike. My knee was shot, and the cartilage had been totally worn down. And one night, it was actually the worst night of my life because it was the 5th night, and we had to stop at a motel because I just no longer could bike, and I had to put ice pack on it. And all night, I was in this just sweaty mess, this horrible state. I figured I'd worked like a year on this thing, and to have it not pan out would have been absolutely horrific. So I decided what I would do is, if anything, I would hitchhike across Canada. Fortunately, that wasn't the case. We made it out of BC. I had really patient friends, and I just kind of limped through it. And as we made it out of BC, this is just outside Crow's Nest Pass in Alberta. And as we made it out of BC, I was really sad to see the mountains go, but at the same time, I was really lucky to see the contrast. It was a lot flatter in Alberta and through the prairies. A big turning point in this story is Thunder Bay. When we arrived in Thunder Bay, we arrived to the Terry Fox Memorial, the second one, and at that point I knew that we were halfway and I could do it all over again if I really wanted to, especially since there weren't the mountains that were in BC. And also at that point my knee was improving. I had found this stuff called glucosamine sulfate, and it really just helped lubricate the joints and that sort of thing, so it was really helpful. And just such a change of pace as I really wasn't enjoying myself up to that point. Some things I saw when I was in Lake Superior Provincial Park. I was blessed waking up every morning to these clouds which would just roll through the mountains, and it was absolutely beautiful. And there would be symphonies of birds waking up at 5 a.m., which kind of sucked but was kind of nice at the same time. Also, they had exotic beaches which had such fine sand that you didn't even think you were in Canada. I could have sworn that I was in Hawaii or something. Not that I've ever been, but it was just probably one of the nicest beaches I've ever been to. It's called Old Woman Beach. I don't know why, but either way, it was really nice. I also got to go to Niagara Falls. Biking all the way there was a bit of a challenge, but I thought that it was definitely worth it. And I was able to go on Maid of the Mist with a friend, and we just got totally soaked, and it was super hot and humid, but it was one of the best experiences of the whole trip. I also got to see some Canadian memorabilia for sports history, one of which was when I went through Hamilton. I stumbled upon the CFL Hall of Fame, didn't even know it was there. I don't think anybody does here, maybe you do from Hamilton. But stumbled upon the Grey Cup. When I went to Toronto, I saw the Stanley Cup, as well as the gold-winning hockey puck, and that was pretty cool. There are a lot of rewards throughout this trip, and one of which was going to the Parliament building. But even more so was the food that we got to eat. Every night we got, like, this is a one meal, really. And we got to eat cookies and we'd eat chips and McDonald's all the time. It didn't really matter, because you would never get fat. You wouldn't get thin, but you wouldn't get fat. So. Now another turning point in this story is that when we arrived in PEI, we were all really worn down. We were getting to the end of the trip. It was probably, I think, 55 days into the trip. And we were absolutely exhausted. And I got an email from a woman from Ontario, and she talked about how she saw us in the newspaper. Her husband had recently been diagnosed with prostate cancer. He was in extreme care and really was not looking good. She shared with me her heart and all the really gruesome details about it, but I was really thankful that she did that, because it made me realize that I knew I could continue on and finish all the way to St. John's Harbour. As we arrived in Newfoundland, it was definitely a different experience, because it was like Lord of the Rings meets Jurassic Park. It was absolutely it's such a different landscape if you've ever been there. You could tell that it's been just piled with ice over the years, because there's all this tundra and it just looks so prehistoric. When we went to Corner Brook, we went to the newspaper and spoke with them. And the next day we went to Smithsville, and a lady actually said, "Oh, hey, I'm pretty sure I saw you in the newspaper." I went, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, you were on the front page of the newspaper yesterday." And we've never been on the front page of the newspaper until Newfoundland, and that was a huge point of the trip for us. So that was really exciting. She gave me money, and I spoke with her son, and they were all like, "Ooh!" So, kind of rock star status. This is actually from Gander, a place called Gander. We tried to arrange our trips so that we'd stop in Gander for a day to rest and to check the internet and to refuel on food. Unfortunately, it happened to be Gander Day, and all the shops were shut. The one day we ever go to Gander, and this is probably the only day in our entire lives that we'll ever go to Gander, that it happened to be Gander Day. So all the shops were shut, there's nothing we could do, so I decided that we'd make the best of it and just go down the streets and join the parade. So here's a little clip of that. I'm gonna be honest, we actually didn't even know if they said Happy Gander Day there. Nobody else was saying Happy Gander Day. They would reply back to us, which is really nice. They could tell we were foreign, so I'm here. We finally arrived in St. John's, and I'd like to ask you guys, how far do you think it is from mile 0 to St. John's? Yeah.
Isn't it, oh, I'm gonna drive like, never mind. It's like 52 hours driving, I think, isn't it?
4,800 kilometers?
Yeah, no, I think it's at 3,500 kilometers.
Close. I guess by biking it might be a little different, but I'll show you in this next clip here how far it actually was. And this is just something we like to do every 1,000 kilometers. It's gonna be kind of weird. Just deal with it.
You wouldn't believe it! Wholly unexpected, we hit 8,000 kilometers! 8,000! 8,000 kilometers!
That's
So
Mono Hill.
our sanity was tested quite a bit because we didn't have a lot of people to talk to. Oh, okay. I need to figure out how to get out of this. There we go. So we finally arrived at the Terry Fox Memorial 75 days later on, I think it was August 4th. I was holding onto this coin just so I could take this picture. I'm kind of not really good at photography, but I thought this was a good shot. So this is the Terry Fox Looney alongside the memorial site. Unfortunately, when we arrived there, the construction site, there was a construction site that was blocking us from where Terry Fox had dipped in his leg. So, I don't know, being somebody that I never even realized I was, I marched into the Port Authority and I spoke to them and I said, so we just biked across Canada and we'd like to dip our wheels into the water where Terry Fox dipped. And they said, you can't do that. You know, you can go down the road and do it in like a wharf. And I said, no, we just biked across Canada, so it wasn't going to happen. So after about 15 minutes of talking to different superiors and different supervisors, they finally allowed us to do this, and that was pretty special. Like, it's kind of like a moment where you're like, okay, I'm done, I've done this. But for me, it isn't like that. I wanted to go one step further. It turned out that we were only 14 kilometers west of the most easterly point of all North America. So we went to Cape Spear, and when I arrived there, I wasn't really expecting a reception. I wasn't expecting to meet anybody who was going to give us a big boo sort of thing. But when we did get there, I spoke to a person who's from Ontario, and he says, "Hi, where are you from?" I said, "I'm from St. John's." He goes, "Oh, okay." But originally from Victoria, BC. And his eyes just come right out of his sockets, and he just throws out his hand and he's like, "Congratulations, you made it, man." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And then he's like, "Oh, dude, come over here." So he's got all these buddies coming over, and they're like, "Dude, aren't you excited? Like, why aren't you doing cartwheels?" And I replied, "Because I was really tired. Don't need to do more physical exertion." So they made such a commotion, and Cape Spear is this really touristy place. And before I knew it, I was actually in a photo shoot. I was standing in front of this sign right here, and I thought to myself, "Oh, I'm probably in the way of all these people trying to take a nice picture of Cape Spear and the lighthouse and everything." But it wasn't like that. In fact, I said, "Oh, should I move?" And somebody said, "Oh, no, stay there, we're taking pictures of you." And it was really just weird. It was really weird. But it was like definitely the best way to end the trip. It was such a rewarding feeling to have people be inspired by this sort of cause. And they asked me, "Hey, why are you doing this?" And I said, "For prostate cancer." And I handed out all these little wristbands, and I was like, "Should I give a speech?" Like, this is, it was a semicircle, as many as you. So really interesting. So yeah, they were all really inspired, and it was just such an amazing feeling. Now before I finish, I would like to talk about the gains from this trip. Alongside of disgusting tan lines, absolutely massive leg muscles, and clogged arteries, there were a lot of invaluable experiences that I had, which really helped my personal growth and helped me deal with my grandfather being ill. Now the important thing here that I want to share with you guys is that my grandfather has now survived prostate cancer. He's totally fine, and it was a long haul, but he's made it through. And I'd like to think that through my efforts, I had some sort of help in his process. What I'd like to share with you also is just a couple of cliches. Never give up, because I never thought I was going to be able to do this, but taking it one day at a time, it was very manageable. It was a lot of pain, a lot of sacrifice, but I did it, and that's the important thing. Also, if you put your mind to something, there are going to be a lot of obstacles in the way, but if you really put your mind to something, nothing can stop you. And a good quote that I just watched Robin Hood, the movie from, was, "Rise and rise again until lambs become lions." Thank you.
Okay, you go get the next computer shop, and I'll do that.